morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. It's great to have you back on the channel. The show's being recorded on Saturday, April 5th, 2025. Be posted all media channels on Sunday, April 6th, 2025. As always, these shows are provided for entertainment purposes only. All the information I share with you comes real time. Through my guides, angels, extended spiritual counsel, ETs, famous people from history, so for entertainment purposes only. Also, if you just take a moment to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, really helps the channel. And right now, we still have about half of all the viewers that are subscribed that are watching this channel. So just take a quick moment out to subscribe. Really be greatly appreciated. We always grab questions from our YouTube channel under the post section. We put requests out every week. Right now, today, we had over 1,000 questions on the channel. So my wife does go through them. My wife, Linda, she actually, today, I think we have 84 questions for today's countdown. So I'm happy to go through those with you. Also, a little bit of housekeeping for those of you to reach me. Go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the Book a Session tab. Dates available now in November, December, and January. So if you're looking for a session, and last but not least, if you want to join our Platinum membership, we do live streams on Fridays. There's also hundreds of videos available to our Platinum members. The join button for the Platinum membership is on the front page of the YouTube channel, Sterling Psychic Medium, as well as the website, sterlingpsychicmedium.com. So, without any further delay, let's get going on today's show. Question number 84. There is so much focus on 45 and EM, but the real problem is the leaders of Project 2025. Do you see them being made to leave government when all the rest are removed? Will any lawsuits be won against any of them? No lawsuits per se, but I do see a big lag effect. So after the eventual decertification, removal, 45, there'll be a lag effect, and then a lot of the administration will not have the ability to leverage the presidency anymore through Project 2025. You know, before I start the show, it's probably worth making a very important upfront comment because we've all observing a lot what's going on in the world and the country. But I really want to say, if you look at all the things that are being done now, the tariffs, the massive layoffs, the Project 2025, our loss of allies for the U.S. and the world, isolationism, federal agency closures, all this is actually designed to destroy America and bring America down. I think a lot of allies realize that things are out of control to some extent here in the U.S. That's going to turn around. But these actions are being taken right now are not meant to make America stronger, but really to weaken the democracy kind of on the world stage. So it's important to kind of make that comment in conjunction with this first question here, 84. 83 in the countdown. Will the U.S. government prove to the American people that 45 has been a Russian asset? Yes, and by the time we get to the end of 2025 and in 2026, this information will be readily available. However, you have to realize that there's a small fraction of, let's say, MAGA followers that will never understand or never believe the information. 82, once 45 is decertified, will there be an interim team running the government before we have a new president? There'll be a hybrid functional structure in place to involve like a Speaker of the House, members of Congress, because the country has never been through something like this before. So there actually, when 45 is removed, there'll actually be a hybrid functional organization that until everything gets put back in place. 81, hello Sterling. I believe we're at the cusp of the M and the AIMS strategy. And for those that are familiar with it, my spiritual team talked about the AIMS strategy on several shows. Stands for analysis, investigation, movement/military separation. We're getting close to the M. We're getting close. We're not quite there yet. Still in the investigation phase. You are seeing major world leaders like Kamala Harris, Barack Obama coming out in public now and starting to speak more openly about things going on. That's all leading up to will eventually become the M stage. 80. Hello, Sterling. I've recently seen Kamala Harris speaking out publicly, and Tim Walz has been going to red districts. where the representatives show up in sound halls and go on TVs. Is this indicative that the AIM strategy is progressing and revealing the truth about what happened in the election? Yes, so it's kind of a carryover from the previous discussion. You're going to see a lot more politicians, political leaders come out and start speaking the truth. 79, the countdown. What does Cory Booker's political future look like? A place in the White House. Eventually, it comes up to me like a chief of staff initially, and then possibly moving beyond that in later years. 78, I live in California and work for the county and worried about the economy. Do you see furloughs or layoffs for county workers in California? It does appear that something like 5 to 10% of county workers will experience a layoff. And this has to do with, the propagation of the effects coming through the economy because of 45's administration. 77, Sterling, do you see anything about the missing cybersecurity professor and his wife from the University of Indiana? His name is, and it's XYAO, and then FENG Wang. So is that, I'm sorry, Zhao Fang Wang? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I get he's safe. I don't get he's in this country anymore, but I get he might be in China, but I get he's safe. So we're asking the question here is missing. I don't think he's missing. I think actually people know where he is what I'm getting. 76, hi Sterling and team. Will 45 reverse the horrendous tariffs that were just imposed? I don't see them completely getting reversed, but I do see them being mitigated and negotiated back and forth. So it's still the sting of the tariffs is still going to be in effect. It's actually already hurt the economy, hurt things on the world stage. But there'll be a bit of a mitigation with the tariffs kind of rolling back and forth. But the harm they're doing will still be present. Okay. 75. Hello, Sterling. I'm fascinated by the Nazca lines in Peru along the Nazca River. There is one image of a serial killer whale holding what looks like a spade or a knife. What does that represent? I get this is actually a shovel, not a knife, but I guess like a shovel, indicating the fact that the earth and nature are constantly evolving and growing. So it's more of like a sign of nature than of hate. It's like not a knife. My team's saying it's a shovel, which is interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying it's a knife. 74, as Atlantis was headed for its final destruction, Edgar Cayce described three places where the records would be safeguarded: in the capital of Atlantis, under the right paw of the Sphinx in Giza, and in a Mayan temple that they think is in Guatemala. Will any of these Hall of Records be found and when? According to my guides, these records don't exist. So I understand the three locations being highlighted here, but my team's saying that actually those records don't exist. Kind of nice stories, but under the paw of the Sphinx and whatnot, but those records actually don't exist. 73, the FDA has delayed approval of the COVID Novavax vaccine, which many people rely on. Will it get approved this year? I do get it's going to get approved, but like late summer is what they're telling me, late summer of 2025. 72, hello, Sterling and team. What was the electricity generated by the pyramids of Giza used for? To power underground cities. And actually, they had things that were like lights in that time. So, lighting and underground cities. 71, hello, Sterling. Bill Gates recently said in an interview that AI will replace doctors and teachers in 10 years. These seem like vocations where human interaction and nuanced communication are especially important. Do you see this? I do see the replacement fundamentally of a large part of what teachers and doctors do, more like in 2 decades, 20 years out, not 10 years, but there'll be tremendous progress made now. Remember, there'll be a shifting of the workforce. So actually, these tools will still be important for doctors and teachers, but kind of doing it a different way because you're leaning now on very advanced intelligence to make rapid diagnosis, rapid decisions. So it's not like a complete annihilation of doctors and teachers, but certainly be a different type of a skill set that will be used quite differently because so much of the burden of diagnostics and whatnot will then be taken over by artificial intelligence, certainly within 2 decades. 70, what are 45's and EM's plans for all of the unemployed federal workers? His administration has to know that under unemployment rates will increase when hundreds of thousands of workers are fired. Where do they think that people will find jobs? Do they expect white collar workers to become farm or field workers? Is this part of the overall plan of Project 2025? So, as we talked about earlier, they have no plan. They're actually trying to destroy the US economy. So, we talked about that at the head of the show here. So, this is all going to change, but it's a difficult time period, but they have no plan. Okay. 69, do you see any large earthquakes in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada anytime soon? I do see some earthquakes around the mid to end of 2025, summer, mid to end of summer 2025, and the beginning of 2026, all in like the 6 to 7 Richter scale range. 68, what is the highest intention that we can hold now to bring our planet to the highest truth, light, and love? Speak the truth wherever and whenever you can. It's most important. Speak the truth as you know it. Do not give into fear and always feel like say all is lost because all is never lost. Okay. 67, how will the court enforce any rulings they make during this administration? I see a constant series of legal challenges, but an onslaught of legal challenges, court cases, judge interactions. So incrementally, the law is going to come bearing down on the administration. And for example, if you look at the what happened in El Salvador with all the transfer of the immigrants, they're going to come back sequentially here. So it's like there's a kind of it's a piecemeal approach. It's not going to happen all at once, but I do see success of the judges, courts, legal teams, incrementally making progress in all these areas. That's how it's going to get enforced. Okay. 66, in regards to China, I've watched several YouTube videos that suggest that China's population is much less than 1.4 billion, they are claiming, perhaps only a half or a third of that. It is speculated that their COVID fatalities may have been greater than 100 million. There is concern that they are facing an economic crisis. What do your guys say about the health of China? I still see their population is about 1.4 billion, but I'm getting that they lost something like 10 million people. I think not 100 million people is what I'm getting. So probably more than they said. Maybe they said they lost 1.42 million people. Looks like they lost more like 10 million, maybe a little bit over that. But my team is not saying it's as high as 100 million lost. 65, can a dog mimic an injury of its human? I was outside for only 1 hour and tore my ACL tendon in pain. I immediately came inside to find my dog limping on the same leg as me. Is this just a coincidence or do animals show empathy? Again, in this case, it was just a coincidence. Now, animals can, if you're around an animal all the time, and funny enough, let's say you're scratching all the time, animals actually will start to mimic that a little bit. But in the case of this tearing an ACL tendon or whatnot, this is just a bit of a coincidence. 64, what will the U.S. look like politically and socially a year from now? It's still going to be a scrambled mess, but it's really going to be making strides toward getting everything together, right? If you look at the AIM strategy, the way it's all going to play out, we're going to actually get back to a better foundation of government. It's going to start to turn things around. We're going to start to mitigate the effects of Project 2025, but it's still going to be a bit of a scrambled mess as we work through it. Um, yeah, and I think it's really as you get out again here into 2026, people are going to start to feel like, oh, things are now starting to kind of get back on track. 63, when will the Supreme Court begin standing up to 45? So they've already started standing up to 45. You're going to start to see more and more of this happening. They have already started. So you're seeing what they call a chink in the armor, or this is actually now we're starting to see things start to turn around. The Supreme Court realizes they got a big problem on their hands in terms of democracy. So it's actually starting to turn around. 62, Sterling and team. You have answered this before, but I can't remember. Will the oligarchs get their $4 trillion tax break? I see it in part passing through Congress. I think may have already happened. We're recording today on April 5th. But for some reason, it does not look like it's going to go all the way through. So it looks like it might get passed. But then there's some other roadblock that comes up that prevents it all from playing out, if that makes sense. Okay. 61, Sterling and team. You often speak about standing in forgiveness. How do we go about forgiving? So you first have to start with forgiving yourself. It's very important. A lot of people walk around with ailments and things that have happened in their past, and they haven't started to learn how to forgive themselves. Once you do that, it's not about forgetting the pain of the event, but it's actually simply stepping into more of an honest, loving space where you don't forget, let's say, the lesson you learned that caused wanting to forgive, but you then move on and call it a lesson, turn it into a lesson, a meaningful lesson. I understand what happened there. I'm taking back my personal power. So remember, when you don't forgive, it actually ends up destroying you. 60. Hello, Sterling. My mother died 20 years ago. Recently, she's been on my mind a great deal, especially when waking up, and she's trying to give me a message. She is trying to engage with you and let you know she's okay and that she's around you. And more importantly, for you to stop worrying about her, is what I just got. Tell her to stop worrying about me. Okay. 59. Would love some insight into the current Canadian federal election. Who do you see winning the prime minister seat? Liberal Mark Carney or conservative Pierre? You know, with a great fight among a lot of voters and actually preventing kind of what happened in the US on a couple election cycles, it does appear that Mark Carney will eventually win, is what they're showing me. 58. Hello, Sterling and team. When will the red supergiant star Betelgeuse explode? When it does, how will it affect Earth? You know, no effect on Earth. Something like 600 light years away, something like that. I don't know what it is. Is this in the Orion constellation? But when it does explode, it's something like 100,000 years out. So really nothing to worry about. 100,000 years from now, 600 light years away, something of that nature. Yeah, nothing to worry about here. 57, this week you confirmed there's an ET ship underground at Skinwalker Ranch. How did it get there? How did the nuclear power generation source get there? And when was it last used? So this was deposited by several extraterrestrial civilizations millions of years ago. The ship contains an onboard nuclear power plant. That's actually what helped power the ship. That nuclear plant, if you will, generation source in the mesa is being used to support and power the portal that's there. So it's actually it's ongoing usage. The scientists will actually get more information on the power source, nuclear generation, the ship that's there in the mesa. But it's being used ongoing basis to support the portal that's there. It's just several hundred feet, extends several hundred feet up into the sky in that area. 56, I've heard that people don't have kids. I've heard that people that don't have kids are their last reincarnation on Earth. Is this true? No truth to the assertion. Actually, every time you come down, you set up your life path. Number of children, not, has actually no direct significance on the number of reincarnations you've had or are going to have in the future. No, so no truth to that assertion. 55, is there an active civilization under the pyramids? No active civilization under the pyramids, but there was, some 5,000 years ago of that nature, but no, not now. 54, hello Sterling, will the Heritage Foundation, the folks behind Project 2025, Judicial Watch, Federal Society, etc., and other right-wing organizations intent on destroying our democracy lose their influence in our courts, elections, U.S. policies in general, once all the election fraud is finally revealed and the 2024 election gets decertified? Look, all these organizations are being described here in this question will eventually lose their influence, but I have to tell you, it's not like for another 10 years. That doesn't mean decertification won't happen, change up, but remember that these organizations have tentacles that go all throughout society. So it's a good 10 years, not till like year 2035, that you see a lot of these organizations kind of mitigate the control they have on politics and government. 53, Aloha Sterling and team. One night in the early 80s, some friends and I witnessed five objects in the sky. They appeared to be gliding, and we saw no lights. The center object was cigar shaped, and the four others surrounding it were triangular. Who were these visitors? These were Palladian motherships, very common in the skies around the world. And I think this might have been North America for this person. But they didn't really say, did they? No. But all these cigar-shaped ship, triangular-shaped ships. These are all Palladian, and a lot of them are Palladian motherships. 52, hello Sterling. I just read Doge plans to rebuild the SSA, Social Security Administration, code base in months, risking benefits and system collapse. McKenna Kelly of Wired said the system contains tens of millions of lines of code written in COBOL, and that safely rewriting that code would take years. Doge wants it done in months. What will happen? So this appears to be all part of the recalculation of Social Security benefits I was seeing, for many months. These questions have been coming up. I did see kind of a new way of recalculating, but I also see the use of artificial intelligence systems to rewrite some of this code. So it's not going to take, what they say here, years or something. No, it's actually can be done very quickly, fairly quickly, reasonably, but a lot of artificial intelligence used to translate code. But when all the dust settles, one of the more important points here is that the recalculations will mean that everybody receives a very similar amount of benefits from the SSA. 51. Are there QAnon or 45 supporters who will carry those beliefs over when they die? No, you actually release all those human-based, earth-based, fear-based qualities that your soul had when you go to the other side. You go through the life review, you release a lot of that. You stand in a complete space of love. So it's really not a factor in terms of the way this question is being asked. 50, what exactly is the Ark of the Covenant? Physical description, purpose, location, and is it currently being used for its intended purpose? So I've read this before, but my team is saying again here, there are actually three Ark of the Covenants. They're nuclear power devices. They're actually the size of, think about a large sub-zero refrigerator kind of lying on its side. So kind of a long, rectangular, very heavy. They're all taken off the planet by the extraterrestrials that brought them. Some of them were brought through by the Palladian, and some were brought through here by praying mantis beings, praying mantis extraterrestrials. They were here to help humanity as power sources. They got used in the advent of some wars that occurred here. So all of the extraterrestrial species took them back. So they're no longer here on Earth. I know the reports around Earth or the planet that people think they're guarding an Ark of the Covenant. They are not. 49, could it be that EM has been given carte blanche access to most departments in DC to not only gather our personal information for future use, but to erase and get rid of proof of election fraud? Will he succeed before he leaves in May if this is true? I get he does have access to all information, but I don't get the direct relationship to him trying to wipe out the evidence of election fraud. That's already actually out there in the right hands. So I don't see a direct correlation between what he's done, certainly a lot of release of personal data, but that he'll successfully be able to erase, let's say, evidence of election fraud. Okay. 48, it has been reported that Texas is making life difficult for transgender folks with regards to identifying documentation, not renewing IDs, not acknowledging court paperwork, etc. Basically, undocumenting transgender people. There's fear in the LGBTQ plus community that things will get worse before they get better. Do you see that EM and 45 regimen doing the unthinkable and deporting transgender American citizens or placing LGBTQ plus folks in camps. I do see there's nothing coming up regarding placing transgender folks in camps or deporting them. I don't see that. I do see for at least better part 2025, 45, the administration making things difficult on, say, transgender folks, LGBTQ plus. That is part of their lopsided, dangerous plan. But however, don't see deportations, camps, anything of that nature. So I think everybody's going to be able to navigate through it. So a little bit of a difficult time, but we're all going to be able to navigate through it, including transgender folks here. 47, how are interactions with my spiritual team different from interactions with extraterrestrials? How do we call ETs for guidance? Is there any difference from calling on our spiritual team? So, well, first off, extraterrestrials do not work with everyone. They're very intent driven. They have a purpose. So if you actually part of your life plan, usually it involves an extraterrestrial if you're working on world health, science breakthroughs, world peace, genetic engineering, supercomputing, artificial intelligence. There's actually very specific tasks that extraterrestrials do. Now, once you have a good relationship with your working spiritual team, your angels, your guides, they become the stewards for everything in the universe. So if you try to communicate with extraterrestrials, your guides and angels will help you do it. They're more than willing to have a conversation, but they won't hang out. They're actually very purpose driven. And if you have a mission you're supposed to accomplish here on Earth, they're actually very busy doing that. So the question is it different talking extraterrestrials versus guides and angels? They all talk through the same channels. But you're going to use your guides and angels to facilitate communications with them. 46, will the reduction in force or RIF for federal employees go as far as 45 wants? A 50% reduction overall via executive order. I hate to start over in another career, but it's looking bleak for us. I'm getting it's more like 25% will be part of the RIF. And it looks like that 25% may be some combination of people that take early retirement. So there is a factor here about 25% reduction federal force that maybe they were forecasting higher. I'm getting it's going to be a lower number. Then again, you include people taking early retirement in that 25%. Uh, but the economy is going to shift around here. And again, I keep saying that as we get into 2026, you're going to start to see kind of the economy shift around, but in a way that's going to start to create new types of jobs. 45, hello, Sterling. You previously mentioned that multiple lives do not occur simultaneously. Can you elaborate? Are we multidimensional yet? What role does reincarnation have in relation to us? Well, so your soul, your complete soul that is existing in your body right now, that has all the soul DNA for all the lifetimes, you are living in this dimension. You're living in this dimension. Your soul is not living in multiple dimensions. Now, other dimensions like the heaven dimension, they move faster than the speed of light. A lot of other dimensions will move multiple times the speed of light. Now, when your soul crosses over, your soul certainly can move into other dimensions if you like, but your soul does not live simultaneous parallel lives. I think that's really the question here. Now, when you astral travel, here's another example. You separate your soul from the body. You can certainly go out to the universe. You go anywhere in the world. You go anywhere in the universe, and you can explore. But that is your soul that is astral traveling. Okay, so you don't live, for example, 10 or 12 or 20 different parallel lives. Your unique soul, your soul DNA, is one life here, one life at a time. 44. Well, let me add something else here. I'm just remembering. So we talk about reincarnation. That's just going back and forth between different dimensions, right? So you go back, see the heaven dimension, then you decide to come back to the earth dimension, but that's still not your soul living simultaneous lives. 44. The TikTok app is supposed to be banned this Saturday, April 5th. Is it because of the current administration is worried about everything being able to witness the big protest that's also happening on that same day? So I guess this question was asked earlier in the week. The 45's administration already gave a 75-day delay, if you will, to the demand that TikTok find a U.S. parent company or U.S. purchaser. I do see a series of delays still occurring in terms of pushing that out. I also eventually saw that it will be one of the billionaires that we know, whether it's Elon Musk or it is Jeff Bezos. Looks like one of those individuals will lean in to try to become the U.S. parent and may successfully do it. But it still looks like it's pushed out quite a ways to me. So the question was all about, the ban for Saturday, April 5th. You're probably watching this show on Sunday, April 6th. But yeah, but the reason the U.S. is worried about it is because of the loss of the firewalling of personal data when it lives on the mobile device in conjunction with that app, the TikTok app. There's a commingling of personal data and then access by the Chinese Communist Party. So, okay. 43, hello Sterling. Over the next few years, will robots take over a significant number of jobs in the workforce? Yes, approximately 10 to 20% of normal jobs as we know it will be taken over by artificial intelligence. The workforce is going to move more into a focus on development, maintenance, and use of artificial intelligence for manufacturing, for science, for health, for maintenance of the robots. So, yes, the jobs we know it will shift, the 10 to 20% at least next few years here. But the jobs that we know now will evolve. There'll be more training to support artificial intelligence. 42. Are there extraterrestrials being held in captivity by the US government? If so, why and how did they get caught? So there are several major bases around the world, including Area 51 in Nevada, that does at this time have a group of reptilians. Okay, reptilians were here very early on Earth, and they've been a little more aggressive than most people would like to see. There are reptilians and there are some grays on in Area 51. Okay. 41, by the way, so I was looking here at the question, they get caught, some of them because they crash landed, and that's how they got caught. 41, is the family we have done down here on Earth always part of our family if we reincarnate? And if they are, would they reincarnate as the same member of the family? For example, would a mother and a father be the same mother and father always, and brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, etc.? So we're all part of a large, unique soul family of thousands of members. Every time we come down, everyone agrees to play sometimes a different role, sometimes the same role. So some of them might be, for example, your mother during this lifetime may in fact be a wife or a sibling, a sister for you or something. They're actually everybody changes the roles, doesn't always, but you're not required to play the same role. If I look at sometimes married couples, and I could tell they've had 6 lifetimes together. Sometimes the earliest lifetimes they were siblings, brother and sister. So it's not always true. It all depends on the specific life lessons you want to come down here to learn. 40. By the way, I'm also reminded here when people come down, they play all different roles in your life. So, right, not to say direct family members, but they could be bosses or best friends. Maybe somebody you had a car accident with when you were 20, and there was something about that life path relationship that now know that person because you were in a car accident with them. All of these people relate directly to your unique soul family before you come down here. 40, right? If 45 is decertified in approximately early summer along with VP, how is it that Pete Hegseth will last until the end of 2025 as it may be appearing? Well, administrations do not turn on a dime. There's always a lag effect. Anytime that there's a big change in let's say, the White House or some sort of political format, there's a lag effect, right? It takes a while for new people to be identified. Congress gets involved. So it's because there's a lag effect, okay? 39, can extraterrestrials and humans have mental illnesses or birth defects personality disorders, internal organs, male, female, genitalia, hormones, etc. So, yes, to all the above, extraterrestrials have a lot of the same kinds of life experiences that Homo sapiens sapiens have, and some of the same challenges and some of the same emotions. They feel emotion loss of people, but the illness wise, a lot less prevalent in extraterrestrial species. They've highly evolved. Their DNA is highly evolved. They use a lot of the genetic engineering sciences to get rid of a lot of ailments. So a little bit more of a better cleanup on aisle five, so to speak. When you look at extraterrestrials, they've gone through a lot of the challenges that Homo sapiens sapiens have gone through, and actually they're way past that. Okay, and they actually don't deal in any kind of judgment. That's kind of important here too. They don't hold a lot of anger or hate. They're very fierce. Let me just say that, if you look at female extraterrestrials, and not everybody's going to meet one right away, but they're very protective of, for example, family members and their children specifically, to the point, I don't want to scare anybody, but they would kill, right? So female extraterrestrials are highly protective of family, but they're highly evolved. So I'm putting all this in a context. So whoever asked the question, you kind of understand that they're more highly evolved, but there's certain areas where, it's kind of a no-go, like be careful. 38. Will toxic masculinity be a thing of the past so the women are equal to men throughout the world by the time the reset is completed in 2050? Yes, this is all part of the 3-decade reset, 2020 to 2050. 37. How can I tell if I'm a hybrid? So all hybrids know they are hybrids. So down here with very specific work assignments, let's call it that way. Okay, 36 in the countdown. Hello, Sterling. I live in Utah, and the governor signed a bill brought by the legislature and not voted upon by citizens to disallow unions from bargaining with the state. Now we have a petition to appeal it and get the vote on it. What do you see for the future of the bill? I see the bill is going to get overturned by some sort of a referendum, maybe 100, 200,000 signatures or something. I don't know. But it looks like it's going to get overturned, I'm hearing, by a referendum. Okay. So it looks like eventually it's going to be okay. 35. Hi, Sterling. Please explain what clairs are. You mentioned that they are accessible when we're young and that we have some of them. No doubt you've explained this before. I may have missed it. Can you please explain them again? Sure. I mean, there are 8 primary clairs we talk about all the time. Now, when you're young, the clairaudient clair, the hearer, is probably the strongest for everybody. But if I look at the 8 clairs, you're thinking about, so clairvoyance is the ability to be able to see, clairaudience, be able to hear, clairgustance, to taste, clairsalience, to smell, clairempathy, feeling emotion, clairtangency, be able to touch, clairsentience, feeling in the body, claircognizance, knowing. I think I got all 8. I didn't want to go back and listen. But those are the primary 8 clairs. Most everybody, if I look at all the ones that people are using, they're using clairaudience to hear, clairvoyance to see, claircognizant, knowing, and clairempath are very, very common. The ones a little more rare are like clairtangency, to be able to feel a touch. And clairsentience, a lot of people are clairsentient too, where they kind of have a feeling in the body, but some of they get mixed up with claircognizant, which is the knowingness, right, or clairempathy. But not everybody is going to develop all 8 clairs, but that's essentially what they are. And you can certainly read up. There's all kinds of books about what they call the psychic clairs. So hopefully that helps. 34. Do extraterrestrials and galactic beings experience grief and how they process it? Yes, we were just talking about that. Extraterrestrials do feel emotion. They do feel the loss. Sometimes there could be murder in extraterrestrial species. They do feel that loss, absolutely. They have a great feeling of love, but it's almost like that great feeling of purpose and intent in life can make them seem kind of cold sometimes. But they do feel deep feelings of love, and even hatred if necessary, right? But it has more to do with like guarding children. We were talking about that earlier. 33. Currently, there's a legal battle with a democratically elected judge Allison Riggs in North Carolina. The Republicans are trying to throw out 60,000 votes to steal the election for the Republicans' candidate. Will they be successful? I get they're going to move to some sort of a panel of judges or something, a three judge panel or something. And then from that, looks like the outcome, we're talking about 60,000 votes here to throw out. No, it looks like those votes will not be thrown out. Now, I'm not sure if they're trying to do this all 60,000, because I see like they may be able to process, I don't know, a few hundred or something and think may the few hundred have a problem. But by and large, it looks like the 60,000 will stand. They won't be thrown out. 32, who made the Holy Ghost panel and related petroglyph rock carvings in Horseshoe Canyon, Utah? Were they made by giants? Not giants, but they were civilizations that lived in that area several thousand years ago, something like 4 to 5 thousand years ago. So they were real civilizations that lived in that area. 31. I am grateful for my angels and guides, but lately it seems like one or several of them might be on vacation or simply distracted by more interesting lives. How can I confirm they are hearing me? So they always hear you. The problem is you don't always hear them. And this is true for everybody, right? So that's where you have to work on that clairaudient gift. We have homework up on our Platinum membership, the Talking with Heaven video. I talk about the 5-minute day homework all the time. But that it's important to develop the clairaudient gift. And once you start to develop it, it's always trust through validation. So the information you get, test it. If you get information to go somewhere at a specific time, you go, okay, that's crazy, but I will. And you see someone you hadn't seen in 20 years, you know, okay, well, that was somebody helping me from the other side. Develop the clairaudient gift first. So they always hear you, you're not hearing them. 30, hi Sterling, do portals open and close or always open? They can certainly open and close depending on the degree of traffic. Now, the large portal that's at Skinwalker Ranch, that's in northern Utah, that is open predominantly all the time. There's a massive amount of extraterrestrials, other spiritual entities that are going through that portal. There are other smaller portals around Earth that maybe elementals use or other spiritual entities, I mean, versions of skinwalkers. Those portals are not always open. A lot of times they do open and close. 29. Hello, Sterling. Can you check into the connections Paula White Kane has with the White House? Supposedly she is selling angel connections to people for $1,000. Don't know a lot about her, but I think she's leading the faith division at the White House or something. So no truth to the assertion that you can sell what's spiritual, they're calling it. Selling angel connections to people. Everybody has access to angel connections. So this is a bit of a spoof. In fact, this individual may be doing this, but what's happening there is not based in reality. Okay, everybody has access to angels and guides. 28. More people seem to have strokes that result in death from complications afterwards. Sterling, will there be a new diagnostic method for doctors to identify and treat patients at risk of a severe stroke before the stroke happens? Yes, this is all part of the imaging technology and artificial health technology that's coming over the next few years here. So that's the great benefit of artificial intelligence technology. One part is be able to access trillions of pieces of data and actually very quickly discern, let's say you have millions of images of some sort of an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI, and you can tell what the percentage of probability is that that image connected to the person you're looking at. You can tell right away whether that's an at-risk image or whatnot. So yeah, this is all coming very soon here. You know, over the next 10 years here, you will not recognize the medical industry and the health industry with all the benefits of CRISPR, genetic engineering, AI, intelligence involved. It's all coming. 27. Hello, Sterling. Do souls that have a psychic gift have that gift in each new lifetime or reincarnation? Is it once you're a psychic, are you always a psychic? It's actually all part of a life path selection. I know many people talk about, well, their great grandfather and great great grandmother would not had the gift that got passed down. Actually, it didn't really get passed down. You decided to bring it in. You decided to bring it into this lifetime. It really is all very much a part of the decisions you make for the lessons you want. And remember, whenever you select certain things for a lifetime, you're also taking on the responsibility for that selection. So it's all well and good to say, oh, I want to be a psychic medium or I want to do all these things. When you come down here, you're expected to help. So sometimes people don't always want to take on that extra burden. A lot of older souls will take on the extra burden because they go, look, that's my duty. I will do that. A kind of an interesting question here. I like it. 26. Hello, Sterling. I've heard you say there are millions of dimensions. Wow, I am 85 years old and not well. What determines which dimension I will pass into? And will I have any say so? Well, you always pass into the heaven dimension initially. It's like a Grand Station, bus terminal, train terminal. You actually pass in like Grand Central Station first with heaven. Once you're there, you get the life review, you're with your birth angels, you meet family members again, animals you've had. Now, once you go through the life review, you have a lot of choice as to where you go. There are thousands of levels in heaven. For the most part, it has to do with the number of reincarnations and what you've done during your lifetime. So people that have gone around and created a lot of havoc in life on Earth, probably not going to ascend to very high levels on the other side. If you did a lot of things here to help people and you really put yourself out, probably ascending to a little bit higher level. This is not a religious thing. It just has to do with the energetic level that you move into heaven with. And that's where the levels come from. Okay. 25. Hello, Sterling and team. 45's niece, Mary, informed her viewers that U.S. taxpayers have paid $26 million for 45's golf outings at Mar-a-Lago in only the first 3 months. This is likely a fraction of the waste of taxpayer money that has occurred and will continue. Will the U.S. be able to recover these funds after decertification? No, unfortunately, these funds are lost. They're lost in the budget process. They're lost, not directly going to be returned to the taxpayers through any mechanism. 24. Do extraterrestrials have spiritual practices like meditation or prayer that nurture connection or spiritual attributes? They practice being centered and grounded and tuned in to the universe, tuned into the one source, the one force. You might think about it as a sort of meditation, but it's not as formal a process as you think. As your soul's elevated, you can connect very easily to the other side. So they don't spend a lot of time around formal practices of like meditation. They just kind of connect naturally is what it's all about. It's almost like analogous to doing relaxation, deep breathing exercise. You connect much easier. So it's not a formal practice to it, not a formal process. 23 in the countdown. Hello, Sterling. USAID employees finally received their RIF letters and will soon be terminated. Is there a possibility that USAID will bring back some of its former programs and rehires after 45 leaves? Yes, by the early to mid 2026, losses can get restored. Talked about this on a couple of shows here, but see the USAID organization getting revamped, reorganized, and restored to a certain extent. May end up being under a different name. They may put this in another organization. So functionally, USAID will still exist, but kind of under a different name. 22, what is happening in Yellowstone that animals are leaving the interior of the park and gathering at the edges of the park? Do they know something we don't? I get this is all just part of normal migration of animals. So there's something about deep snow or weather conditions or lack of foliage or something. This is like a natural migration. So I would not read too much into it. 21, will EM ever make his trip to Mars in the near future? If so, what will his reaction be when he discovers it's already inhabited by ETs and humans? Well, he'll find out about 10 years here. That's when the conventional, let's say Mars probes or whatnot are going to make it out there and take humans out there. Remember, there are already extraterrestrial species and ships taking scientists back and forth to Mars right now. So he'll understand that in roughly about 10 years. 20. Will EM try to run Social Security through his XAI company? Will he be awarded a government contract to do so? No, I don't see any interaction or contracts flowing to XAI for EM. Remember, XAI was the artificial intelligence, the chatbot, the AI platform that was running around X. I know recently EM combined X with XAI. I think the combined value was like $80 billion, dollars, X being about $30 billion. Dollars. He was valuing XAI, the AI portion of that platform, at like $50 billion. Dollars. But no, I don't see any, there's no contracts I see coming to XAI for that around the SSA, Social Security Administration. 19. Dear Sterling, what will be the fate of Pam Bondi? She'll continue to be the AG for a large part of 2025 and then be pushed out as you get into early 2026. 18, will grocery stores eventually be run predominantly by AI and or much less humans in the future, or will humans remain a prominent fixture in the grocery stores as workers? Here again, AI technology is going to take over a large part of the mundane tasks, but individuals will still be present to manage the AI, guide it, use it where it's appropriate. So it's not an overall replacement, but yeah, AI is going to be a part of every element of society, including grocery stores. 17, is suicide a life path choice, and will one be received by the other side by one's guides, family members, friends, the same way as any other passing? Absolutely, yes. So, suicide, it's a very difficult topic for a lot of humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens. You never get off the planet if it's not your time. I talk about this all the time. Everybody's life path is interconnected. I've talked about this before. Anybody that leaves via suicide leaves behind a lot of life lessons, a lot of experiences for doctors, family, friends, colleagues, even animals. Animals mourn a loss. So what's interesting is that suicide, when you cross over, it is part of your life path. I tell the story sometimes, some individuals that have tried to commit suicide maybe 4 or 5 times and never successful, like a doctor's or a paramedic's always there to save their life. You don't get off the planet unless it's your time. Likewise, if it's part of your plan, when you cross over, you are greeted with whatever the life experiences, the lessons you're supposed to learn. So it's a difficult topic, I know, but I've seen this by talking to millions of entities and guides and angels and ascent masters, extraterrestrials. I've seen that this is really how it works on the other side. Okay, so suicide is part of a life path. You are greeted, in a similar way. 16. Hello, Sterling and celestial friends. Would like to know if ETs have pet companions as we do, like dogs, cats, horses. They do have pets. There's a whole animal contingent in many galaxies and many universes. They don't look quite like the Earth-based animals. I will tell you some of the dinosaurs, crocodiles, octopus. There are certain types of woolly mammoths. Those animals actually are very similar in other galaxies, other planets, yes, and extraterrestrials have them as pets. 15, hello, Sterling. In regards to the cancer disease, acute lymphatics leukemia with the mutation of a specific gene, the Philadelphia gene, do your guides and angels see a possible cure on the horizon for this disease? I do in 10 to 12 years, they're telling me that's going to happen. So this is all part of CRISPR genetic engineering. They're making actually great headway in genetic engineering around leukemia, various forms of cancer. Looks like this particular one involved in some mutation of what they're calling the Philadelphia gene. Not familiar with it, not a doctor, but this is actually something there's a good cure coming in about 10 to 12 years here. 14, it seems that EM and his band of technicians are finishing up and are on their way out. What do your guides say is happening and why is EM leaving? Did EM gather everyone's personal information and will he try to use it for nefarious purposes? So first off, what I get is EM is leaving because it's causing a very critical bottom line effect on his companies. And so that's one of the reasons, a big financial reason. Now, He is a somewhat temporary government employee. We know that. He would have had an invitation to stay much longer. I think he's still going to be working behind the scenes. I've always said this. I didn't see EM moving away from 45. I've always seen that there's going to be some sort of a connection there. They're going to be working behind the scenes. But the big reason is, there's a temporary, there's an exit point, an off ramp here that he's given as a temporary employee, but he really wants to start to safeguard the bottom line of his companies. Okay. And I think they were saying that he gather everyone's personal information. We've talked about that. He has. And actually, unfortunately, it has been sold off to other offshore countries. So I tell everyone, do whatever you can to safeguard your financial information. Quick service announcement, make sure you freeze your credits. Very easy to do with all the credit bureaus. And it doesn't prevent you from using, let's say, your credit cards. But what it does do is prevent other people from opening up other lines of credit. So a quick public service announcement on that. 13, with 45 deporting people, how will the Olympics play out? Will countries boycott it out of fear or protest for 45? Yes, I do see massive boycotts. And I think the next Winter Olympics 2026. Is that what's coming up? In Italy, I think. But yeah, I do see massive boycotts, still some disruption around the Olympics and what's been going on worldwide. The efforts of 45 to create, remove our allies, create an isolationism for the US. Yeah, but all this is really going to affect, it will affect the Olympics as well, too. 12, hello, Sterling. Do you see CMEs or coronal mass ejections from the sun crashing our societies within the next 30 years? If so, what can be done to prepare? There are always a lot of coronal mass ejections from the sun. They're all different degrees. There are going to be some rather large ones that are going to knock out some networks on Earth. Now, they can knock out, they produce very strong magnetic pulses. CMEs from the sun, coronal mass ejections, very common. They happen all the time in varying levels. Some of the larger ones will knock out some networks here via magnetic pulse, but they'll be restored. So they'll be regional states, maybe a couple states, and then they'll come back after a day or two or three. So it is part. I do not see any large-scale coronal mass ejection from the sun knocking out humanity. It's not actually, I do not see that. I do see something in a million years getting very close to that. By that time, a lot of humanity will actually be off the earth. Doesn't mean that there won't be protection, underground cities, things of that nature. But what my team's saying is the one that maybe people are worried about is more like a million years in the future. 11, hello, Sterling. Do angels incarnate on earth? And if so, do they have things like soul contracts, intended life lessons, karma, like other souls? I don't ever see angels reincarnating on Earth. They move around very easily through all dimensions, including the Earth dimension. But I've never run into one, I've never seen one that actually felt they had a need to reincarnate into a Homo sapiens sapien, type of a biological form. Remember, there are a lot of Earth angels running around. Those are Homo sapiens sapiens. They're highly evolved. They're here to help. But in terms of real angels, I've never seen them. In the millions I've dealt with, that they reincarnate here on Earth in a human form. By the way, they can show themselves as full-scale apparitions, but that's different, right? 10, hi Sterling, what can you see regarding New Orleans hurricanes and sea levels rising? How much longer will New Orleans exist? I do see that whole Gulf area is including Florida, Louisiana, talk about New Orleans here. By the year 2050 is really going to be submerged a lot of water. We talk about over the next couple of decades, sea levels rising 1 to 2 feet worldwide, but those areas are going to be under really great pressure. By the year 2050, I see great difficulty for that area. It may in fact be somewhat uninhabitable. Now there's engineering things potentially people can do, like they've done in other areas, like the Netherlands, to provide huge dam gateways. I still see that those areas are going to be under big problems when we get to 2050. 9, hello Sterling. Canada is considering spending billions of dollars on new oil and gas pipelines. When will peak oil happen, which would likely make these pipelines obsolete? Here again, I get a reference to 2050. So there's going to be, some sort of, I know that Canada, to a large extent, had a lot of oil and gas business, But by the time you get to 2050, that's really that ship is going to be sailed for a lot of the world. So a lot of renewable technology, solar panel technology, green technology will be used, and so the reliance on oil and gas won't be there. So you can look for kind of a complete decline by 2050, but then obviously a progression from where we are now, kind of a cycle up and a little down as we head towards 2050. 8, will Governor Andrew Cuomo be the next mayor of New York City, and will the current mayor, Eric Adams, go to jail? I get yes on both. It looks like Andrew Cuomo to me from my team saying will in fact become the next mayor of New York. And I do see some jail time coming up for Mayor Eric Adams. I mean, maybe less than a year. I know there was some talk in the news that charges were released or dismissed, but it still looks to me like I've always seen there's some kind of jail time coming up for him. Could be 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, but there's some sort of jail time coming up for him. But then I also see Andrew Cuomo eventually becoming the next, it looks like the next mayor of New York City. 7, hello, Sterling. There's much focus on 45 and EM, but the real problem is the leaders of Project 2025. Do you see them being made to leave government when all the rest are removed? Will they win any lawsuits, or will lawsuits be won against them? I think we addressed some of this earlier in the show. Happy to do it again, but yes, I mean, all the elements that are affecting the government right now, a lot of them are based on the Project 2025 plan. I do see there's an element that'll be in government for a long time, but the effects will be mitigated because they won't be controlling the presidency. So yeah, this is a problem, and this has been around. Remember, Project 2025 went under a different name when it was in the Reagan administration. This plan's been around for a long time. Don't see a lot of lawsuits happening, but I do see a lot of people being forced out of government and democracy coming back into government. Okay. 6, when speaking with our working guides and birth angels, do we talk out loud or speak quietly, or can we speak quietly as if we're talking to ourselves? Uh, I always suggest when you're learning how to communicate with your team, you talk out loud. It has a lot of intent, a lot of emotion, a lot of power behind it. And it's much more concrete, discreet way, practical way to talk with your guides and angels. Once you really get the skills down, talking in your head is fine. Remember, it does all flow through the communication. Actually, it's the creative mind center of the brain where all the connections are made to the other side. But I find that at the very beginning, when you're learning how to develop the clair, especially the clairaudient clair, much better to speak out loud, like you're having a real conversation, which you are. Okay, it's kind of a helpful nuance, if you will, in a way to develop the skill. Talk out loud. 5, if you have one of the clairs, are you able to develop others, or do you ask your guides to help? So not everybody is going to develop all the clairs, the 8 primary clairs. Most people are strong on the clairaudient side. Most everybody has a clairaudient gift, clairvoyant gift, a lot of clairempaths out there. Fundamentally, you're born stronger with a certain group of clairs. I've experienced with a lot of people. But let's say you're a good clairaudient and you're a good clairempath. You can actually, it's easy to develop, say, the claircognizant gift, the knowingness gift. So you can actually leverage some of the other clairs to help develop a new clair. It's very true. But I always like to use the artistic or the musician example. You may come down and be a great keyboardist or piano player. You can learn how to play violin or guitar. Doesn't mean you're going to be great. It really just depends on some of the life path uh, milestones, the skills that you actually put on your life path. And the clairs are like a skill. They really are. 4, hello, Sterling and team. During our life review, are we held responsible for unintentional harm we cause to people? Often people can feel deeply hurt when we truly meant no harm. Due to their own past experience and attitudes, do we feel their pain when we meant no harm? Well, during a life review, you experience everything that you engaged with when you were down here. It's not meant to hurt you per se, but it's meant to reinforce the lessons for your soul. I mean, life review, we could do a whole show on life reviews. But life reviews are intended to allow the soul to evolve. So you understand all the interactions, all the happiness, all the sadness you left behind. It is true. So whatever you experienced, whatever you put out to the world, whether knowingly or unknowingly, you will experience a lot of those feelings as part of the learning process. And number three, two, and one in the countdown. I always take notes before we start the show, so I'll go through those with you right now. Number three, do your extraterrestrial friends have anything they want to share? Trust us, we are working diligently behind the scenes to create a better world and remove much of the chaos you are currently experiencing. So they're working with a lot of people, scientists, political leaders, a lot of people behind the scenes to try to create the necessary change. Number two in the countdown, what do you see coming up next week? New peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. It looks like they're going to make some progress. New prominent business figures and billionaires coming out publicly, very publicly, in opposition to the new global tariff policies that are going to start to affect some change. New layoffs at major car manufacturers in the US across the board, unfortunately. New drugs for childhood diseases are going to be released. Some sort of new childhood drugs coming up here. Some discussions about Gavin Newsom eventually making his way into Congress. So some sort of pathway forward here for Gavin Newsom. So lots coming up this week. And number one in the countdown, do you have anything your guides want to share, angels and guides? Make sure you surround yourself in the belief that all things are possible in the world as well as the universe, and the universe will support the best outcome for humanity in spite of the challenges we experience. Always work to elevate your thinking, and this will create your reality. On that note, that concludes the show being recorded today on Saturday, April 5th, 2025. Be posted to all media platforms on Sunday, April 6th, 2025. Again, if you need to reach me for a session, there are dates available now in November, December, January, even February of next year. You can get to those dates. Go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com. Look for the Book a Session tab. Very easy to do. If you want to join our Platinum membership, the Join button is right there on the front page of the YouTube channel, Sterling Psychic Medium, as well as the website, sterlingpsychicmedium.com. On that note, I'm going to wish everybody a lot of goodwill and tremendous love to you and your families. Take care. I will talk with you all again very soon.